Yeah, so the show behind me, which is No Comment, consists of 2 paintings, some sculptural elements, and a video game. And it's essentially about this impending doom that I feel we are currently in. Every time I turn on the news, there's some sort of atrocity that's been happening. It's been going on for a very long time, but it seems that we're ramping up to something, and I don't know what it is. No one's talking about it together. So the whole aim of the artwork was to get people to think about the references they have when it comes to atrocities, and then talk about them, maybe within the gallery. I was hoping the gallery would be more than a space just to see art, but a space that can host those conversations and also bring up some of those feelings so that they could also be let out in that gallery environment rather than the work just be consumed as another art piece. The reason I use video games is that I don't really like art that's quite passive. Like, we've had a history that art is something that you come to enjoy at your leisure, at your pace. And with a video game, it's up to you to begin it. So it doesn't start or show you much until you actually interact with it. And so a video game asks a lot more from its audience. And the more you give, the more you can get from it. And so there's already a dialogue of exchange happening with an interactive piece that you don't often get with a non-interactive piece. It's just to break this idea that you're here to witness something and to appreciate it, and instead to get you to act and get you used to the fact that you should be intervening in any space, and especially spaces like this. I have this rule when making the music, which is I have to make it in one sitting. That is each track. So nothing's ever saved, nothing is put into a file and worked on later. It's whatever I'm feeling at that moment is put down into some sort of musical scene or musical, let's say, notation. And so for me, making the music feels so much like a diary. It's one of the most spontaneous, natural things I can possibly do, which is why this work mainly focuses on the writing and the sound, and the images just give you echoes of maybe what I'm talking about. You don't exactly know what you're looking at, but you know the themes that are being talked about while you're looking at them. And that's also done to allow people to bring their own references in and stick them on. For me, the music and the writing create this kind of mood of disaster, this like tragedy, and then the images let you then place your own ideas of what that is, and then that kind of draws you through to what you think is being talked about, which makes the work more effective and less about telling you what's right or wrong, and more about just bringing them up to the forefront of your mind rather than letting them disappear and be buried in your memories. A lot of the time I work with particular groups. So the first video game I ever made, I worked with a group of around 14 different black trans people, and we made that video game together. So not only the characters, but the landscapes and the choices that you went through were all based on the conversations we had. Almost like a joint adventure conversation archived into something that is interactive for you. And as that's gone on, I've realized that the magic in that isn't necessarily in the game, it's in the audience responses. So there's almost 2 artworks when it comes to a game. There's the mechanism to get you thinking about yourself, and then the actual piece is what you leave with inside. And I always want the piece or maybe the environment of art to allow for the genesis of real change. I usually make a new game for every place I show in. This one started with that it was going to be hot here, so that's why everything's on fire. And so they almost feel site-specific. It really depends on where it is. I did a work in Australia, and we had a conversation about black transness, and those words meant something completely different because they have Aboriginal history. So the words black transness mean something completely different and don't actually take into account the people there. So when I was there to archive black trans people, I had to let go of all the kind of preconceptions I had and understand that the language I was using was more restrictive than actually inclusive. especially when I showed another work called She Keeps Me Damn Alive in Korea, where the phrase shoot to protect black trans people doesn't exist. And so that whole concept of that game makes no sense. You really have to take into consideration where you show them, which is why I usually make a new work every time, which is insane, but something else I see the games as, I see them more as like sketches and paintings than this kind of digital smooth media. A lot of them are quite rough. They're not like these polished games, and that's because I make them quite quickly. It's quite natural for me to make them because I make them like sketches. I'm not precious about mistakes going in there. I let them kind of form, and whatever it is, I just allow it to live. So for me, it's not about making this smooth, super perfect narrative that everyone can understand and is very beautiful to look at. It's just about getting the emotion in there and seeing what kind of comes out from the audience perspective.